All right, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing well. This is an Invent Tribe Q&A that we're doing to answer any questions of people trying to get their products licensed on the shelf. I guess this is also live streamed out onto Facebook and a couple other platforms. If you're on there and you want to get in to ask questions, click the link inside the stream, and then you'll be able to sign up to get inside the Zoom room. So the Zoom room is where everybody can ask their questions. And those that are in the Zoom room, if you want to start filling up the question box with any questions that you do have, while I kind of do some introductions. I see Frank here. Hey, Frank. Gary. I see a couple people I recognize. So welcome. Excited to have you here. To give everybody a little bit of my background, I've licensed 5 of my own products. I was going to say 6, but I'm almost to 6. So 5 of my own products. I've helped coach over 170 people to license their own products. And I built Invent Tribe, a company that helps teach inventors how to license their own products to help people like myself. You know, when I got started, I was looking for my path, how to get products licensed. And so I built it to help people get their own products on the shelf. So I'm here to help anybody that's looking to get their products out there and start their own royalty stream. So people want to start typing in some questions. That'd be great. Let me check here on the other platforms to see if we have them coming in. That's going to cause some feedback. All right, cool. So I had as we're getting some questions in here, I can tell you a little bit about a deal that I'm personally working on right now. I have a product that I have. I guess I can't technically show that because it'll be public disclosure, but I have a product that I'm working on in the kitchenware space, and I did a competition with my students. And we all started a project, even myself, started from scratch. So essentially I created a challenge where it was 60 days and you had the opportunity to go through all the steps with me. So I was recording myself doing my own project. And so I was doing the research, and I was showing everybody how I do research, how it all works. And then building marketing materials, showing video, showing how I made it, how I built the prototype, all these different things. Then the provisional patent application, and now I had pitched the product back when we had the competition in March, and now I've got interest on it, and I've got 2 companies that are looking at it, and so I'm really hoping to get it licensed because it was kind of cool. We got to record every step of the way for this product, which I've never really got the opportunity to do. And so it was, it's a product that we've recorded like step 1, the basics, all the way through to the end. And so if it turns into a licensed product and it's on the shelf selling, then we'll be able to have this kind of record or this story all recorded, and it'll be a very cool thing to share with everybody. So I did get a question in. This is from Robert. Thank you, Robert. Is it possible to get products licensed that can't be patented? Yes, I have licensed products that that are not patentable, and I've had students license products that are not patentable. I wouldn't say that it is over 50%, but it's getting close. I'd say in the 40% range of products or licensing deals that I see that are products that haven't been licensed or they're not patentable. And so it's totally possible that you license a design. And a lot of people, especially people that lean on patents a lot, they say, well, then what are you licensing? And you're licensing a product and a design. And and this gets a little bit into the weeds, but like, so when you license something, it's what are you giving for the royalties, and what you're giving is the design and the know-how and the understanding that you have of the product. And a lot of companies are okay with licensing that. They don't necessarily need to have patents because they don't, they're not in a position where they license their own products. You know, there's some companies that don't rely on their whole product portfolio to be licensed or to be patentable. Even most of their products don't have patents. And so they won't sit there and look at it and say, well, we don't use patents. Why should we, you know, try to force others that are licensing to us to have patents? You know, and part of that is industry specific. You know, I could see people out there saying, you know, oh, I have medical device products and you can't do that. Yeah, I mean, industry specific, totally understandable. It's, you know, houseware, hardware, pet, toy, novelty. There's a ton of space where there's no patents, or, you know, licensing deals happen without patents all the time. And Robert had a follow-up question, which was, does it affect the licensing percentage fee? Some people will say it does. I don't really see it. I've had companies say, you know, we give a higher percentage for patentable products, but in the end of the day, the inventor gets, you know, their 5 to 7%. And so I don't really see it affect the royalty rate, even though companies say it will. At the end of the day, it typically doesn't. But I could see in circumstances, like if I was a company in certain circumstances where I know that competition would show up very quickly, that I wouldn't want to give a full 5 or 7% royalty. It just wouldn't be in the cards for me in terms of a business model. But you know, that all kind of depends on the company you're working with and their understanding of how patents work and how they want to work with you, right? And another part of this is that when they see one good product from you, they expect, I mean, there's not an expectation, but there is an expectation that you're able to produce more good products. And so that's why, like, they try to work with you and make a team and pay you a royalty for your product and not necessarily for your patent. So Robert, it's possible. There's a path that you have to take to navigate that, but it's totally possible. And another follow-up question, does the royalty rate get affected if the company has to do engineering on the product? That's another one. So to give you a more in-depth answer, if we had a scale from like here to here, this is you know, product on a napkin sketch or just a piece of paper handed to a company, and you're like, can you license this? All the way to something that's fully developed, engineered, molds, selling in the market, doing well, and transitions to a licensing deal. I see, you know, 5 to 7% deals here, and I see 3% deals here. And so you can't ever really say like where the product is at in development will impact the royalty rate. If companies are watching this, they'll be like, it totally does. But like from my viewpoint and my watching the market and how licensing deals all come together in, you know, a broad spectrum, right? I've seen over 170 deals come together. And so from that, the royalty rate doesn't necessarily change. You know, I see people that they're like, oh, we need to go get manufacturing ready. We have to get molds. We have to get it selling on the shelf to prove sales so that we can get a higher royalty rate. I mean, I had one student that did all of this. They went and they got a 5% royalty rate, where I had a student, and even me myself, I essentially had just passed napkin sketches, basically artistic drawings of the product presented in a sell sheet and getting a licensing deal at 5%. So it's like, you don't know what it's going to be. And Robert, to give you my like strategy or my tactics of how I get products licensed is I start out at the beginning, because I don't know where a company's going to want it along this scale. They want napkin sketches. They might want to license it there because they want to get on the ground floor. They want to redesign, redevelop, and make sure it's their thumbprint on the product when it comes to market. And so when you're coming up this scale, most people, they think they need to get all the way to the end of the scale to start the licensing process. I start at the very beginning and I pitch it in a very simplistic form. companies will come back to you and say, this is interesting, but we can't license until we have this. And that might be engineering. But for you as a inventor, wouldn't you rather go to a company and have them say, Robert, we're interested in this, we want to license this, but we need engineering. And then you can come back to them and say, of course, I'd love to develop the engineering for you. If I do get this or engineered out, what would our licensing deal look like? Because now you turned a speculative thing into an investment. Because when they say, Robert, we're willing to give you 5% on sales, and our sales are projected to be $2 million a year, then you look at the investment in getting engineering for the product as an investment. If you don't have a company that's coming back to you to say, Robert, we're interested in this product, then it's all speculation, right? It's all the belief that your product will work. It's not until a company comes back to you and says, we're interested and we want to license this product, is when you will actually get the return on your possible investment. And that's how I took it with one of my products. I had this product that I had worked on, and I had pitched it to companies, and I could have, spent the money and got it engineered and figured everything out beforehand, but I didn't know if it would be licensed. And so I pitched it in a very simplistic form. I built prototypes, pitched it. I got interest in the value that I was presenting. Once I got that value once I got the interest in the value I was presenting, then they said, we need it to the next step. We need manufacturing ready models. I said, great, can you help me with that? And we actually kind of went side by side. I hired a designer. We'd move it along through the process. I'd send it to them. They'd look at it and say, yeah, this looks like something we would manufacture and sell. I'd say, sweet. And we'd keep going forward with it, right? So I had kind of this checks and balance of like, I got to bounce it off of somebody that was actually going to license it. And they were on board with me in the process along the way. I wasn't just doing what I thought was right. I was doing what they wanted to license. That's the difference between when you become a professional inventor versus the amateur. The amateur is going to spend all this money and try to figure all these things out and then go see if there's interest. Go find if there's interest and then go spend all the money on it. So Robert, I hope that helps answer your question. Said that's exactly where I'm at. They like my product idea, but the question was the engineering. We'll talk again in July. Perfect. So what you want to do is, if they want the engineering to move this forward, probably for pricing purposes, to understand if there's pricing, you need to ask them, if this engineering comes out the way that you feel it will, or the way that we feel it will, then, what happens after that? And, what does that licensing deal look like if that's the outcome? I had a student that I'm working with right now, and she got interest from this company. They were all gung-ho. They're like, yes, this is awesome. We're going to present this at the trade show. And they're going on and on about how great the product is. And then I was like, you need to go ask them what happens when they get interest after the trade show. And so she did this, and they said, oh, it's great. We'll go get interest after the trade show, and we'll just introduce you to them, and you can go build your business. And she's like, no, like, I wanted to license this to you. And they're like, well, we don't license products. And so if she didn't ask that question, and Robert, that's where you need to step in and ask this question, because you could get this engineering done and they might not have the intention to license it if you haven't spoken specifically about what happens after the engineering is figured out. I've seen it happen a lot of times. That can change your whole game, because when I got working with the company, I got to ask them, if this prototype and this manufacturing level model works like the prototype, what happens? They said, we'll license it. I said, well, what does that look like? They said, we'll pay you 7% royalty. We'll have minimums of $30,000 a year. I was like, all right. Now this is an investment, not speculation. And that's where you need to be. So understand what's going to happen if it turns out the way that both parties feel it's going to. Because you guys might be passing in the woods and you both think you're both moving towards the same goal, and in reality, you're not. So I hope that helps. Do ask some more questions. I'm going to jump over to, sorry, I had missed another question back. I am ready. I have reached out to a few companies, some of which don't accept cold calls. They want someone that is in the business already. What is the best way to get in the licensing circuit? Calling. They might say that they don't take cold calls, but part of it is how you navigate through those cold calls. If you're coming off in the cold calls, well, I guess the way you can handle it is a couple different approaches, right? When you get somebody on the phone, I have an approach of an assumptive sale, right? And what that means is I assume that they want to see my product. And it's not like a cocky thing or a ego thing. It's a confidence that you're bringing them value. And when you have a confidence in the fact that you're bringing them value, then they treat you differently. I have a script that me and my team uses. You can actually go on to the Invent Tribe website and click around. I think that there's a button on the homepage to get the link to our scripts. And I use those scripts. And it's very simple. Hi, my name is David Fidua. I'm a product developer. I'm calling to see if you look at new products. Sometimes I say, we don't take cold calls. I say, great. Well, how can I present the product to you? Because I'm assuming that they want it, right? When you just accept the fact that they tell you they don't take cold calls, all right, well, this is not cold anymore. We're having a conversation. And when you have that approach, it does open doors. And I know that might be a little bit of a personality thing. And so if you're not getting into doors by knocking on the phone, try LinkedIn, try Facebook messaging, try a lot of websites now. Business websites have in the bottom little pop-up box, and it's like customer service. How can we help you? Start chatting with them. When you want to get into a company, and it's that important to get in, you need to knock on all the doors. Once you knock on all the doors, you find a way in. Can you make a comment on what industry or category you're in? Toy industry was like not open to new inventors. They didn't take cold calls. They didn't take inventors. They only took submissions from agents. They opened up the doors to all inventors, and I feel like they're starting to close them again because they've just gotten the tidal wave of product ideas submitted to them, and they can't necessarily manage all of them. So it depends a little bit on what category you're in. And then the follow-up question, what is the best way to get in front of a licensee? Realize this, and you as a person and every single individual out there has a primary method of communication. Your primary method of communication is, like, let's say some people, if you Facebook message them, they will not message you back because they just don't check or look into their Facebook messages. And that was me probably a year ago. I just didn't message people back on Facebook Messenger because I was communicating through LinkedIn message, email, phone calls, and texts. And those were my primaries. And so there's some people that just don't answer their phone. And with COVID and everybody working from home, things changed a little bit, honestly. There were some companies where it's you'd call and their phone system would reroute your call directly to the individual cell phone that was sitting at home. They're working, but they're at home alone, so they don't have anything else to do but answer their phone when it rings. And so some companies was super easy to get into during lockdown because people were working from home and their phone rings. Other phone systems for companies were set up so that it just rang and went to voicemail. You need to leave them a voicemail, and then they have to call you back. Well, some people weren't just calling you back because they're we're not looking at new products right now. We're just trying to survive. And so you have to look at the person you're trying to contact is not like an industry. You're not trying to get a hold of people in the pet industry. You're trying to get a hold of individual people at companies. And the individual people, they have tendencies and habits. And their habits are they pick up the phone and they listen to a voicemail and they call people back. They don't pick up a phone call if it rings, or they only answer emails. So when you're always constantly calling, then you won't necessarily get in. But if you call, you email, and you're I don't have the person's email. You call the 1-800 number and say, hey, I've been working with Bob Smith. Can you give me his email? They say, yep, it's bobsmith@abccompany.com, right? And you'll be surprised at what they give you. So you'll be able to call up, just get their email address, email them directly, and then message them on LinkedIn. So you have all these different platforms or avenues of communication. If you still cannot get in, I do what I call the trifecta, and I call them and I leave them a message saying, hey, my name is David Fido. I'm a product developer. I'm calling to see if you look at new products. I was going to reach out and leave you an email so you have my contact information. Then send them an email that says, hi, Bob. I just called and left a voicemail. I'm the product developer reaching out to see if you guys take new product submissions. I've got a new innovative product that I think fits in well with your company. I was going to message you on LinkedIn to make sure that we're connected as people. And they're like, okay, this person's not going away. I have to respond to them. I don't do that right away. You got to ping them a couple times. You've got to call them, leave a message, leave them an email. But then, after 6-8 weeks of calling, emailing, following up, I pull out the trifecta to try to close the deal on getting in the door and talking to the right people. So do try to use all the techniques, knock on all the doors, talk to the people so you can get in and find your answers or talk to the right people. So thank you. If you have any follow-up questions, I hope that helps. Entertainment for children, Walt Disney stopped me when I was on the computer filling out a form. If you're doing Walt Disney products, don't go to Disney. Go to the companies that make Disney products. Entertainment for children, if it's like a show concept, that might be a little bit different. But if it's like a new innovative product that would go at theme parks or be sold at stores that have Disney logos or, like paraphernalia for Disney, that's different. You want to find companies that sell products that make Disney, not Disney themselves, if that makes sense. So you might be getting roadblocked because you're going down the wrong road. But give me some more information as I answer Cade's message here. Sorry, I missed one question from Gary. Do you partner with new startups for a percentage? Gary, yes, I do. Depends on what stage they're in development. And that's more of an evaluation of where you're at and where I fit in. I definitely have partnered and have partnerships with inventors and help them bring products to market. I recently did a partnership with a company that was selling products. They had started their production and started selling online, and I brought them into retail. And we're now in Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, and we're going into hopefully Walmart in the fall. And so I do, but it's more of a one-on-one evaluation than just saying a blanket yes. So I hope that helps. Cade, a lot of inventors are trying to get their products on the shelf, but what if you're trying to get them in the hands of the people who stock those shelves? Would licensing be appropriate in that scenario? So it looks like you're looking to do, and you might need to give me some follow-up questions, is that you're looking at an industry-specific product. So you're looking at a product that, a great example of it is my friend who created the innovation. It was called the Clever Cutter. It is a utility knife that's protected. See if I have one of his products. In the moment I talk about it, I don't have it. It's essentially a utility knife that you can't cut yourself with. Super cool product, but it goes well in anybody that's doing deliveries that needs to cut boxes open. And so he got that in the pipeline of the people. So the Walmart staff carries these, the Home Depot staff carries these because they're safety knives, but they're knives still, and you can't cut yourself with them. And so there's an industry for, and like this product, this is industry specific. This doesn't sell on retail shelves because people don't buy beer pitchers. Bars and restaurants do. And so this is an industry specific product that's sold to bars and restaurants. So there are people that supply products for workers, and you just have to do your research on finding who and how they get products and use them. And so that takes a little bit more research. It's not as straightforward as like if you're selling a workout product, then you go to a sporting goods stores like Dick's and you find the workout product category and you see all the products on the shelf and these are the companies you're licensed to. Well, with industry specific products, it's a little bit different of a path. And so you have to do an in-depth research, maybe reach out or go to the store and find somebody that's stocking a shelf and ask them questions. Like, do you guys buy any products? Where would they be sourced from? And that will give you not necessarily the answer, but the path. What I found by asking questions of everybody. So I remember I was working on a project and it was in the promotional products category. And I was having a very difficult time navigating because it just seemed like all these products came in from China and then people printed them, but there was nobody that necessarily designed them, made them, or made any innovation in that space. And so I wanted to figure out how it worked. Well, few people know that Staples actually is one of the bigger companies in the industry that supplies these products. And so I called up Staples warehouse and distribution center, and I got one of the warehouse people on the phone, and we talked probably for a half hour, 45 minutes, and probably not good for the job, but I guess he was helping a customer. And I asked him, how do products flow? Where do they come from? How do they move? And those that understand distribution chains are the ones that understand how to make money in the business. Because if you understand how the distribution chain works, if you understand how a product moves from manufacturer into the retailer, then you understand how to plug your product in the right spots so that it's distributed to the most people and makes the most money. And so that's why I dig in deep and try to understand markets and how products move, because then I know how to position my product so that it can fit in the correct spot with the right distributors and make more money than other products that are not plugged in the right spot. So if you do a little bit of extra work, you'll understand the market better and be able to distribute your product in the right spaces. So I hope that helps get you kind of focused in. I know it's a little bit more work, but it helps kind of navigate and get the product landed in the right spot. Frank, hey Frank, the company that I'm working with is taking longer than I thought to help get the product to market. Get the product market ready. My PPA will expire towards the end of summer. Should I redo the PPA before it expires, or don't worry about it? So this is, I mean, and you always have to take this question with the, I guess there's an attorney answer, and then there is a business answer. And the attorney answer is go to the utility filing, right? Spend the $5 to $10 grand to get to the utility because it's the safest path forward. And you protect yourself the best. All the other paths are a little bit more risky. And so knowing that, right? And the path that I personally would take, and that's, where my head's at is how would I handle this? And so the attorney's perspective would probably be, I'd file a utility patent. I wouldn't let it expire because that's going to be your best protection. And so the way I would approach it is I would talk to the company about how important intellectual property is to them, because I would want to feel out where they're at, where their head's at, where their focus is. If they don't file patents on their other products, then I would probably just, incorporate all the improvements that I've made over the last year on the product into a new provisional patent application and file that. So I've got another 12 months. I've lost my original filing date. But, doing it now, doing it later, think about it this way. The other one, as soon as it expires, then has no bearing on the present one. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you overlap them or if you file one now. I personally would file one now because it'd give you an earlier priority date, and hopefully you'd be able to get something on the market by May 25th of next year. And so I would incorporate all the improvements. I would talk to them where they're at in terms of development, because here's something that always gets picked up is through development, new improvements are made. And through those new improvements, they can be filed in the provisional patent application. So if they're like on the verge of having completed the design, and I would wait until I saw that design to make sure it fits under my PPA. And then I'd file the second one. If patents are super important and priority dates, and you're in a very competitive intellectual property space, like medical device, pharmaceutical, like those places, you need to be filing full utilities. Frank, I know the space that you're in, not super highly competitive in intellectual property. Like people are not filing patents on top of each other to like beat each other out in this space in terms of patents. I know that it's a competitive landscape in terms of products, but not so much patents. And so, I mean, I would personally take the direction of learn as much as you can, have conversations with your licensee, even though it's taking a longer time than what they thought. Understand where they're at, understand the improvements that they made, try to incorporate them in the PPA and get them filed for a new filing date. I hope that helps. Give me any follow-up questions if you have them. Gary said, it's very difficult and time-consuming to search for the right people to pitch to. How do you do it? It's something that you actually become faster and faster at. And here's the craziest part about the internet is the internet brings you answers. And that's one of the things that I love about it. Some people, they're like, oh, I don't want Big Brother listening in, or I don't want Facebook listening to me. But here's the thing, like when you type in, let's say back scratchers, and you want, a new, or you have a new back scratcher idea, or if you got a new barbecue spatula, a new fitness product, when you type those things in, well, that gets logged into searches. And then when you're just searching the web in random, companies are advertising to you because it's something that you've previously searched. And so then you click on the link that they're advertising to you because they're companies that are bringing new innovative products to market. And so you get to like piggyback on, they're bringing you more companies. So like just being in life and living a day, you get, the internet brings you more companies. And then, but to get started, I first do a Google shopping search. Google shopping is different than Google. So you type in hammers or whatever product category you're in, hammers, go to Google shopping. And then down the left-hand side, you're going to see a bunch of brands. The brands are the ones you're going to be pitching to. I copy and paste that list into a spreadsheet. And then I just quickly pull all their websites up and pull 1-800 numbers off of them to call. Usually, if you're in a category, if you're in the top 5 category, houseware, hardware, pet, toy, novelty, and seasonal. Did I miss one? No, that's it. Seasonal. Then those usually have 15, 20, 25, even 50 companies you can get up to in some of those categories on who to pitch to. If you're outside of that, if you're doing something like, I think it was Cade was doing like things that help people stock shelves, you're looking at, 5 to 6, maybe 10 companies in those categories. So if you're industry specific, you might have a little bit more of a difficult time finding companies, but you start your journey, the internet brings you more, you keep calling, and you actually, and this was the craziest one that a lot of inventors that I work with find is super, super crazy, is you actually get introduced to other companies from people. So like, let's say you find a company, ABC company, you get a hold of them. They say Bob in marketing takes care of that. They forward you over to Bob's voicemail. You talk to Bob, or his phone rings and he picks up and Bob says, we'd love to take a look. You send your sell sheet, you send your video, whatever it is you have. Bob says, hey, this is interesting. It's not for me, but I used to work at XYZ company and I know that they're looking for new products right now. Let me pass you over to Chris at, he was an old buddy that works there, right? Because when you work in an industry, sometimes you work at different companies within the industry and you move around, and so they're connected. And sometimes they're not necessarily as competitive as people would think when they're like, oh, we have to hide innovation and keep it away from them. Some people say, this is not for us in our company, even though it's innovative, it would be right for them. So they actually connect you through with a warm introduction and say, hey, take a look at this. So just by starting, you actually can build a bigger list by calling, reaching out, and having conversations with the small list you may have. So Gary, start small, start on Google Shopping, go to the store if you can, and build your list from there. From the list that you have, start calling, and then it will grow from there. That's my strategy that I do. Juanita, how about food packaging industry? That's an interesting space to be in. It's competitive, right? Packaging in and of itself is competitive. And so a lot of the times when I see people moving towards packaging industry, they've licensed products in other categories. Because when you do a barbecue spatula or something simple, novelty gift, patents are not as important, one. Second thing is investment's not as big. When you're looking at packaging products, even food packaging, physical product packaging, whatever it is, they're run on high-speed machines. The high-speed machines, if you shut them down, right, they're sometimes producing, thousands of units a minute. And so when you shut them down, you're looking at sometimes thousands of dollars a minute. And so they're like, we need to shut down the machine, make modifications to make this innovation. And so if they're going to do that, they want to have a product that's more fleshed out, more ready for the market, intellectual property portfolio. So not just like I have a PPA, they want usually sometimes granted patents and things that are further along in the patent process. And so it's just a much more difficult category to license in. Typically, it takes more money and time to get something licensed. So I've helped students license there. I've helped students license food manufacturing products, packaging products, disposables. It's just more competitive, costs more money. And so that's why a lot of people usually start out in simpler industries to learn and understand the rules of the game and then bump up to bigger games like packaging or disposables. So I hope that helps. And then David said, do you need a proof of concept prototype? Yes and no. So I know that there's a lot of people in the industry saying you have to have proof of concept prototypes. You do, but you don't. If the product doesn't necessarily make sense or it can't be done or they don't know how it would be done, yep, you need proof of concept. It's just something you need to prove to people that you can actually make this thing and it actually works. But if you have something simple and straightforward that from a picture, people can understand how to manufacture it and how it works and the value add it has, then prototypes are not as important and more conceptual drawings can work to get your product licensed. So there's not a black and white answer. And that's why I like to say, like, it's product based. It's not like this, you have to have a like fully fleshed out, fully functional prototypes that deliver the end result exactly the way it is. Some of the as seen on TV videos that are commercials that made $70 million or more were done with prototypes that were duct taped together. And so those weren't fully done yet, but they were ready enough to present to the market. And so like my strategy and approach is I present products to the market as soon as I possibly can when I feel I can present the benefits in the best, most exciting way possible. So that's how I approach getting my product in front of people, because then once I can show them a concept, either in a drawing or in a rough prototype, they get it and say, we're excited about this, we want to license this. Well, now I know and understand that it's a benefit that people want to license, and I start to push that product forward, and I'll do things like get engineering drawings like what we were talking about earlier if they're asked for, or a better prototype if they're asked for. So don't like take it all the way down to the end of the tracks where it's fully developed and ready to go. Present it, find out if there's interest, and then the company will ask if it's ready for that. So I hope that helps. If you have any follow-up questions, do type them into the chat or the question box. What are some of the products you have already licensed? I have I don't have it right here. I have a beer koozie that keeps your beer or soda refrigerator cold for 45 minutes by a company called Corksicle. It's their Arctic can product. I'd license that. I'd license this beer pitcher. It's a anti-foam beer pitcher that doesn't foam when you fill it. It has a sloped wall. If you're familiar with how to pour beer, most bartenders will pour at a tilted angle instead of having the beer drop straight down the middle. They tilt it. Well, this beer pitcher creates the angle within it because it sits flat and has this sloped sidewall. And so the beer hits here and rolls down the bottom and fills up without foaming. So I have some beer specific products that I license that are out on the shelf right now. Gary said, can you give me your direct email so I can send you? Of course, David at inventtribe.com. Send me what you got and we can talk more. Hector, should one target small, medium, or large companies? Depends on your product, but I like to target the middle companies to get started. Reason being, small companies usually have 1 to 2 or 5 or less products, and they need those products to work for them to be in the market. And they can't fail once or their whole, product or enterprise gets upended. And so they don't like to take risks on new innovation. They like to keep it a little bit safer. Large companies, they own the marketplace, they own the shelf, and they don't need new innovation to continue to control it. And if they do need new innovation, they buy it. And so when we get to the medium companies want to be the large company. And the way they get there is through innovation. They want new innovation so that they can put it on the shelf. They have enough funds to invest in it, and they have the personnel to make it a reality. That is a big difference, right? When you work with those small companies, they don't have the resources. And I will tell you, I had a product that I was trying to license many years ago, and I was pitching it to the middle companies. The middle companies said, we love this innovation. We're all about it. But what it came down to was they said, we're not prepared financially to make the investment it takes to make this product a reality. What that told me was, you need to go to bigger companies, David. So I started going and pursuing bigger and bigger companies to get my products licensed. And so I started in the middle, but ended up actually licensing to one of the bigger companies in the category. That's not where most licensing deals happen, but you have to take a path of action, because when you take this path of action, right, you start down this path. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. When you start calling companies, your list grows. And that's the craziest part. Like, people don't understand is they're like, I need this big, huge, robust list to make my product, a reality and bring it to market. But like, no, you don't. You need 10, 15 companies to start calling. Then your list will grow as you take action. And so that's the same thing with your product. I start with middle companies, because out of my experience helping students license all these products, most licensing deals comes from that middle band. They're not the small companies, the 1 to 5 product companies with 2 or 3 employees. They're usually the middle band companies, usually, 10, 15 products. They're looking to expand their line. They've got 5 employees or so, or more, even up to 15, 20 employees. And those are the companies that are usually looking to expand. They've got good distribution. They're looking to grow it. And what is the best part about it is they're not usually big enough. The fact that your product just gets developed and then thrown in the back of a catalog, they need it to work still, right? They're still small enough to the point where they look at the product and say, we need this thing to be successful. So when they launch it, they do, and they put a lot of energy and marketing dollars towards it to make the thing be a success, right? They don't want it to fall through. And so when you get into those middle band companies, you actually can have more success. I've had a product that was launched with, I have a product that's selling with $1 billion company. And I have a product that's with, $10 to $20 million company. I make more royalties on the company that is $10 to $20 million a year than the $1 billion company, because the company, the smaller one, depends on making that work. Where my other product got pushed into the back of a catalog, they don't necessarily care if it works or not. They have 500, 600 other products that are making sure that they're staying afloat. And so the bigger is not always the better. But if you are in a licensing deal and you're comparing the apples to apples of distribution chains, that bigger company is going to look a lot better. And so, you'll get to the point, if you've got a good product, you go through the 5 steps of getting your product licensed, you get to that end point where you've got multiple companies interested. It's a good problem to have. It's an exciting problem to have. I have a student right now. I want to see if he's on right now, but he's in this situation where he's not on. He's in this situation and he's like, this is terrible. I'm like, this is the best problem to have as an inventor, right? You've got all these companies kind of like, courting you, trying to get you to license the product to them. And so he's like, but it's stressful, right? And I'm like, it's a good kind of stress. It's something that you want to have happen. And I've been in that situation. It is stressful to understand what's going to be the best company for your product in the future, because there's things that you don't know yet. But as you move through the process, you get to understand what the financial side of it, what the emotional side of it, what kind of impact your product will have on the company. And then you get to weigh the difference between the companies, and that's how you get to do it. And so, that's kind of how I validate, or I go through the process of figuring out small, medium, or large. Is I go after the middle and then kind of take my path forward based on the feedback that I get. Gary's got some awesome questions. Also, do you do product validation for startups? I don't necessarily know what that means. Like I always look at validation as market validation. And so like what I do is I go out to the marketplace for validation. I try to pitch and sell my product. And so Gary, this is actually really interesting. You bring up this point. So a lot of, and entrepreneurs that are outside of the licensing circle that are actually looking to like build a company can use this tactic. When you go pitch a product for licensing, you're pitching your product to individuals who've been in a specific industry, and barbecue spatula is the easiest one. So like, let's say you're doing barbecue products, you're pitching your barbecue spatula innovation to 20 to 30 companies that these individuals have been in the business for 20, 30 years. So like 20 companies, 20 years, is that 400 years of experience in this industry, whatever it is, right? Just kind of being silly on the 400 years. But when you pitch them a product and they say, Gary, this is interesting, we want to license it. What they're saying is, we're willing to put a lot of money into this because we see value proposition that the customers are willing to buy and that we can profit from. And if you're in the validation stage, right then and there, if you got companies that are willing to take their money and invest it themselves, then you might pull it out of licensing and go venture the thing, because you're getting, and where a lot of inventors get screwed up is when they go pitch their product to the market to license it, and companies tell them, no, this product's not going to work. And then they go venture it. I'm like, that's the worst idea, because you've just had 20 individuals that have been in this business for 20 years each say that this product is not worth our money to invest in to make this thing become a reality, because we don't see the fact that it's going to make any money. And so then inventors like put the blinders on and say they don't know and understand. Well, they know and understand something is wrong with your product and you need to reevaluate. So like for market validation, I take a product, I go out and pitch it. Like the product that I'm working on now, went out and pitched it, got a bunch of interest. I know that it's something that will fly. I just have to find the right company that will license it. And then Gary had a follow-up question. Also, do I need to incorporate to license my product? Yes, I do highly recommend it. You would also talk to an attorney on this, but when you're entering into any licensing agreement, I highly recommend having some type of corporate structure, LLC, incorporation, whatever it is, to protect your personal assets. You want to divide the two. When you're dealing in writing contracts and having agreements with companies, you want to have a barrier between you and your personal assets that makes sure that you're protected. So I do recommend that, and I do recommend speaking to an attorney on it. Excuse me. Juanita, another question. What if your product doesn't exist yet? Yep, totally understand that. What if there's not another one even like it? Okay, I'm gonna answer this. What if you have nothing to compare your product to? Juanita, then I recommend probably not doing that product. And I do this, I say that half jokingly, but let me give you the whole story on it. So when you say, what if your product doesn't exist? Sorry, I lost your question. What if your product doesn't exist yet? And so what if your product doesn't exist? Most inventions, most products that people are pitching, they don't exist yet. But I think what you're really getting to is, what if there's not another one even like it? Then you usually have a problem, because that means nobody's willing to pay money for it, because most of the things on the market right now, people are willing to pay money for. Good examples of that. And let me differentiate for you. So the story of the Dyson vacuum, if you're familiar with the Dyson vacuum, was originally Mr. Dyson went out to license this innovation to companies, Bissell, and they said, hey, this is a cool innovation, but we don't want to license it because we don't think people are willing to pay for the market, right? So there wasn't any product like the Dyson vacuum. It wasn't. There was nothing like it, right? It was bagless, had higher suction power. There's nothing like it. But there was everything like it. There was vacuums out on the market. So what you need to look at your product for is, are there other products on the market that accomplish the same goal? So like, you can have something that's completely different, nothing like it exists in the marketplace, but other products are accomplishing the same goal. And that's the important part, right? And Juanita, if you can type in and give me a little bit more context, but like, if there's nothing like it and nobody else is selling anything that's accomplishing the same goal, then you probably don't want to do it, because nobody's willing to pay money for it, and you're going to have a very difficult time licensing it. So then your third follow-up question is, what if you have nothing to compare your product to that has the same answer to it? You probably want to drop it if there's nobody paying money for similar benefits or similar problems being solved. So do step back. Every product that is innovative, there's nothing like it on the market, but they accomplish similar goals. Like when I licensed my beer pitcher, there was a couple products on the market that were trying to reduce foam in beer pouring, and bars and restaurants were paying thousands of dollars to fix this problem. And I did it with a very simple, elegant solution that was money saving on the front end and on the back end. And so I was creating something that was completely new and innovative that had never been seen in the marketplace before, but people were paying money to solve the same exact problem. And that's what you need to truly look at, Juanita. I hope that helps. Message me, let me know if that does. Or if you wanted to shoot me an email, David@InventTribe, with any follow-up. Have some more questions in the chat box. When licensing, where would you spend most of your money? There's a couple different answers to that. Depends on where you're at in the process. So like for me, I don't spend more than $100 to license my products. And that shocks most people, but it really doesn't usually take much more than that. Reason being is that if you know and understand what to do, see the problem, or the huge expense where a lot of inventors have this perception that like inventing costs a lot of money, is because they don't know what to do. And if you know what to do, then it doesn't necessarily cost as much money, because I file a $70 PPA and then I go out and pitch in the marketplace with a prototype of product that I usually buy on Amazon or Walmart or Home Depot, and I'll cut it apart and glue it back together. So prototypes usually cost me less than $20 or $30. And then I shoot my video on my iPhone and I edit it, and then I send it out to companies. So I guess depending on where you're at in the process is, I would, if you're early on, I would spend more money on education and understanding what to do. And then using the provisional patent application system that the USPTO has set up. Sorry for all the acronyms, but PPA, provisional patent application, set up by the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office, to help inventors get products patent pending so that they can pitch their product to the marketplace. So that gives you the ability to be patent pending for 12 months. And I do this, I mean, it actually is patent pending for 12 months while you pitch your product and validate interest in the marketplace, and hopefully get a company to pay for your patents, which that's what I do. And so I guess But if you go out and get interest, so there's been products, this one is a great example, and I love it. It's right here. I got a good one that I can use as an example for a lot of this. I had pitched the product to companies off of that business model, right? $70 PPA, $30 prototypes. Company was interested, they loved it, but they needed more. And so I got them to validate, to say, this is a product we're willing to license, we're willing to pay you 7% if the prototypes perform the way that your kind of like mocked up prototype, my $30 prototype worked. And I was like, okay, that makes sense to me to make the investment. The investment in that was $3,000 to get the prototype from a mock-up, one that I literally bought a piece of plastic folder at Walmart, and I had an existing picture, and I cut and molded this shape into an existing picture to recreate the prototype. And that was my first version of the prototype. And that's what I got them interested in. And then that's when they said, we love this and we want to license it. We're willing to pay you X amount per year plus a minimum guarantee. And that's when I looked at it and said, all right, like this works. Like if it works the way I think it does, then they're willing to pay me all these things. The investment of $3,000 made it worth it for me. And it's where inventors will make that $3,000 investment without having company validation if it's something that somebody's willing to pay for. There's a difference, and this is like, I hope everybody hears this. There's a difference between like innovative products and innovation that people are willing to pay for. I've seen things that are super innovative, super cool, right? And all your friends and family will say, oh, I love this. This is super cool. But like it doesn't get licensed because it's not a profitable innovation. And so the reason I go out and pitch my innovation is to find out if companies think it's going to be profitable. If they think it's going to be profitable, then they end up licensing it. It doesn't necessarily matter how like cool and innovative it is. It's just that's a profitable business venture for them, and that's what you're trying to validate. So don't spend more than $100 to get validation. If they ask for more, then sometimes you've got to spend more money on it. So I guess for most people when they're getting started, spend money on education, coaching, books, understanding the process of getting your product licensed, and then you can get products on the shelf and make investments more in prototypes once you have market validation. What company would you consider a middle company? Middle company is not the top 2 or 3 distributors in a space. And so it's hard to say, like, there's no hard definition because you can't define it by dollars. If you say, what's a middle company in disposables? Well, they're $50 to $100 million, where a middle company in barbecue spatulas is like a $5 to $15 million company. So there's no dollar amount or necessarily a number of employees. It depends on the category, but it's essentially anything below the top 3 companies in the category. I'm going to send you a video on Thursday. Sweet, send it on over. I've made costly mistakes, very expensive lessons, too embarrassing to discuss. Totally understand. I've had inventors invest over $1 million in projects that they didn't validate with the marketplace before going out and spending money on engineering and prototyping and all these different things. So that's why I say education is first and foremost. If you don't get yourself educated, then you usually get lost in going down the wrong roads and feeling like, right? And you don't go down those roads without this like passion and drive, right? You're like, this is it, right? I'm going to make it. This is the path I'm going to take. And then you get to the end and you realize that it didn't necessarily get you the place that you wanted to go. And that's why like having a strategy that has been done before, that people follow, that can get you on the shelf selling is the thing that, I rely on, that all my students rely on to not have to spend a ton of money, to get yourself in front of potential licensees, to present your product, to get validation, to have somebody call you back and say, David, we're interested. We want to license this product from you. And then that's when I'm okay with spending money once I understand their value proposition, how much money it's going to return to me. I don't spend anything more than $100 typically if I don't get to that point of them telling me how much I'm going to make from it. So I do thank everybody so much. I know we're at the top of the hour, so thank you so much for joining in this Q&A. It's been very great. I am doing another webinar. Actually, I'm breaking down the strategy that I use, the 5 steps of licensing, on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are interested in understanding what those are, do come to the webinar on Sunday night. We'll put a link in the chat if you'd like to sign up. You do need to sign up so that we can send you the email to get in. And I really loved all these questions tonight. They were a great lineup of questions, great group on. So I appreciate everybody that's come on. And if you do want to follow up with anything, do email me, david@inventtribe.com. And for those that don't have the link, it's inventtribe.com/inventor-royalty-machine. And that's where you can get into the 5-step webinar where I break down my process of getting my product licensed, and essentially the process I teach to all my students. So everybody, thank you so much for coming on, and have a wonderful evening.